just to say that we're now streaming, Chair.
Okay, good afternoon, everybody. Welcome to the West Berks Schools Forum for June. Many of you might not know me. My name is Neil Goddard. I'm the new Service Director for Education in West Berks. It's good to have met many of you already, and I'm sure I'll meet the rest of you very soon. As you may have seen from the agenda, the first item for today is election of chair, and as such, I'll be chairing for that small section of the meeting, and then we will move on with the new chair. Hope everybody's aware this meeting is being recorded and streamed as usual, and I hope everybody's got sight of the papers so that we can move forward. It would certainly be helpful for me if we did introductions, if everyone could bear with it. I had a hand then for a minute. No, okay. Apologies. It'd be helpful for me if everybody could do introductions. So we'll do that very quickly first, then move into election of chair. So, as I say, my name is Neil Goddard. If I can go around the room. So, Sadie. Oh, Sadie.
Oh, hi, I'm Sadie Owen. I'm just here to help with a Zoom host. I'm from Democratic Services.
Thank you. Campbell.
Yeah, Campbell Smith. I'm Vice Chair of Governance at St Bartholomew's School.
Graham.
I'm Graham Spellman, the representative for the Roman Catholic Diocese of Portsmouth.
Maria.
Maria Morgan, the nursery school representative.
Anne-Marie.
Hi folks, I'm Marie Dodds, Exec Director of Children's Services in West Berks.
Councillor Codling.
Yeah, Heather Codling, portfolio holder for Children's Services.
David.
David Ramsden, head teacher of Little Heath School.
Gemma.
Hi, Gemma Piper. I'm CEO of the Equinox Learning Trust.
Hester.
Sorry, Hester Collicutt, DBV Programme Manager.
Melanie.
Hi, Melanie Ellis. I'm the Service Director for Finance.
Michelle.
Hello, I'm Business Manager for St Finian's Primary School.
Nicola P.
Good afternoon, everyone. I'm Nicola Ponton. I'm here as Acting Service Manager for SEMH.
Thank you. Nicola T.
Hello, Nicola Thomas. I'm the Service Lead for Legal and Democratic Services, here to provide any legal advice required.
Nicole.
Hi, I'm Nicole Browning, Head Teacher for the Willink School and Secondary Representative.
Phil.
Hello, I'm Phil Spray. I'm co-chair at Spurcroft Primary School, and I'm a primary school representative.
Richard.
Hi, Richard Hand, branch secretary, joint branch secretary for the NEU and union representative on this panel.
Thank you. Lisa.
Lisa Potts, Finance Manager at West Berks Covering Education in the DSG.
Okay, and Sam.
Hello, Sam Chiverton. I'm just here for the Democratic Services team, just here to help with the Zoom like Sadie.
Okay, apologies I've missed anybody. Anybody I've missed?
Hello, I was the one with the errant hand up earlier on. Neil, hello. John Hewitt, Special School Representative and Head of the Castle School. Hello.
Welcome, John. Keith.
Keith Harvey, Executive Head at St Nicholas Junior St John the Evangelist Infant School at Primary Rep.
Thank you, Joe. Joelle.
Joelle, don't worry.
That's me then. Hi, I'm Jo Ligaris. I'm the Executive Head Teacher at the Kite Primary Federation.
Welcome, Rose.
Hello, everyone. I'm Rose Carberry, the Principal Advisor for School Improvement and Governance.
Okay, Joanne.
Jo MacArthur, Head Teacher at the Willows Primary School, Primary Representative.
Jess.
Hello, I'm the clerk from Democratic Services at West Berkshire Council.
Leah.
I'm the Insurance Manager at West Berkshire Council. I'm just here for an item on the agenda.
Okay, Leslie.
I'm Leslie Roberts. I'm the Head Teacher at Streetley Primary School.
Welcome. And Jackie.
Jackie Davies, Head Teacher, Eye College.
Is that everybody? Thank you very much for your time. Like I say, it's really great to see everybody here this evening. As I say, the first order of business is to elect a chair and vice chair for this meeting for the coming year. So it's a 12-month appointment, and a new election will take place obviously next year again. So do we have any nominations for chair of the forum? John.
I'll go for Graham Spellman as chair, please.
Thank you, John. Any other nominations for chair other than Graham? No. Graham, are you happy to be nominated?
I am indeed, Neil. Thank you.
Thank you, Graham. So, Jess, I assume we need a vote.
Yes, please. Yeah.
What's the approach to that here?
So if members can indicate by raising their hand if they agree to the proposal.
Is that electronic hand or real hand?
Real hand's fine for this one. Yeah, that, and I confirm that's carried. Thank you.
Thank you very much. So Graham is duly elected chair of the forum for the coming year. So Graham, I think I hand over to you.
Thank you very much indeed, Neil. That's very kind of you, and a warm welcome to you. I gather only 11 days into the post, and you're very welcome, and I'm sure you'll have a lot to contribute to our meeting today. Our next item then is to elect a vice chair of the Schools Forum for 24-25. Are there any nominations for vice chair? I'm very happy to nominate Keith Harvey. Do I have a seconder for that, please? Thank you, Phil. Jess, can I ask you to take the vote on that, please? Oh, are there any other nominations I should add first? No. Jess, could you take the vote, please?
Yeah, so please can members indicate by raising their hand if they agree to the proposal. And I can confirm that's carried. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Jess. Right, as chair, if I can welcome everyone to today's meeting, and I'm assisted by Sadie Owen, who will be the Zoom host, and Jess Bayliss is the clerk. Everyone's introduced themselves, so I don't need to do a roll call of who's actually attending. And you're all very welcome. It's good to see so many faces on the screen. Perhaps I can first say a thank you to Gemma Piper. She's going to be standing down from the forum from her end of her term in July, as she's moving from West Berkshire at the end of this academic year. Gemma joined the forum in 2019, and on behalf of the forum, I'd like to thank you, Gemma, for your commitment and contribution over the years. It's been very welcome, and you've been an excellent member and given lots of insight into questions that have come up at forum business. Thank you very much indeed, and we wish you well in your new career or new post.
Thank you very much.
I should also welcome a new member, Jo MacArthur, who's the new maintained primary representative from the Willows Primary School. Welcome, Jo.
Thank you.
And as you already know, tonight's meeting is being streamed on YouTube, so members of the public are able to follow our proceedings. Item number 2 is apologies. Jess, can you please call out apologies that you've received?
Yes, Chair. So I've received apologies from Councillor Ian Cottingham, Trevor Keeble, Richard Hawthorne, Beth Kelly, Susan Tanner, Mark Bennett, Paul Davey, Julie Lurie, Jay Armstrong, and Charlotte Wilson's going to be joining us slightly late at about 6 p.m.
Good, thank you very much indeed. And item number 3 are minutes. So we've actually had 2 meetings that we have to adopt the minutes for. The first one was our regular meeting on the 11th of March 2024. I propose to accept those minutes as a meeting held on that date. Can I ask for a seconder, please, from a member who was actually at that meeting? Can anyone remember if they were at that meeting? Thank you, Gemma. That's very kind. And can I put that to a vote through? Oh, Jess, if you could take the vote on that, please.
So if you can raise your hand if you're happy to accept the minutes. Okay, and I confirm they're carried, they're approved.
Thank you very much. I'll sign those minutes then as approved. Then the minutes of our special meeting that was held on the 8th of May 2024. I propose to accept those minutes as a true record. Can I ask for a seconder of the member who was there? Phil, thank you very much indeed. Jess, can you please take that vote?
If you can indicate if you're happy to accept the minutes for show of hands, please. Okay, and I can confirm they're approved.
Thank you very much. Item number 4, then, actions from our previous meeting. I think these have all been fulfilled. They're on page 21 and page 22 of your pack. I don't think there are any other items outstanding there. Is that correct, Jess?
That's correct, yeah.
Thank you very much. Item number 5, declarations of interest. So can I ask if there have been any declarations of interest from members, please? You have been notified of some declarations of interest on one particular item, I believe, Jess.
Yes, I believe so John, Jackie, Chris and Maria have their hands raised, so I'll hand over to them.
Thank you. John, would you like to?
Yeah, declaration interest on item 7, I believe, to do with clawback.
The other 3 members as well, I believe.
Yeah, same for me as well, Graham. Item 7.
Thank you very much, Chris.
And item 7 for me.
Thank you, Maria. Oh,
And for me, Graham.
and Jackie. Thank you very much. We'll be coming on to that item very shortly. Item number 6, membership. Jess, could you please advise us of an update with regard to membership?
Yeah, so Jamie Morton, the Finance Director for Newbury College, has joined the forum as the new post-16 representative. Will hopefully be able to join us from the next meeting in July. There's still 2 vacancies on the forum. There's the Early Years PVI rep. Nominations have been sought for the position at the Early Years Funding Group. However, none have come forward as of yet. And then secondly, we've still got an Academy Governor rep vacancy. An election took place in April, but no nominations came forward, and I'll repeat that at a later stage.
Good, thank you very much indeed, Jess. And we'll then move on to item number 7. If Chris, John, Jackie and Maria could please leave the meeting at this point. Sorry to lose you. Okay, they have all gone, I believe. Thank you. If you could let them back in after this particular item, Sadie, that would be very helpful.
Yes, of course.
So, item number 7, then, scheme for financing schools, the clawback mechanism. Can I hand over to Melanie then to introduce this particular item, please?
Yes, thank you, Graham. You're all familiar with the clawback mechanism, but just as a bit of background, so a consultation was undertaken with all schools in November 2023. And one of the local authority recommendations within that was for the inclusion of a clawback mechanism in the updated scheme for financing schools. And that consultation result was 68% in favour of a clawback mechanism being introduced. The Schools Forum voted on the recommendation in December 2023 and voted to include a clawback mechanism, but only from the 31st of March 2025. Since then, the local authority has spoken to the Department for Education regarding an appeal mechanism available to it, which is available when a Schools Forum votes against a local authority recommendation. But having discussed this at Heads Funding Group and before any decision was made regarding this action, we would like the Schools Forum to review the original decision in the light of now having final balance information for the 31st of March 2024. The balance information is actually in a later report to this agenda, but it has been received by everybody. So just moving on to the recommendations in the report. So Heads Funding recommended that we revisit this decision, which is why the paper's here. So in 2.21, the local authority is recommending that we reconsider whether to implement the clawback mechanism on balances as at the 31st of March 2024. And secondly, that the maximum amount that could be clawed back is any amount in excess of 10% of a school's budget share, subject to leaving the schools with a minimum of a £50,000 balance. Now, at this point, I'm going to just ask Keith to come in because I am aware that there is an amendment to that recommendation that's being proposed.
Yeah, so I've been sort of negotiating and chatting with a number of heads, primary, special and secondary on the Heads Funding Group and Forum. And I think it's important to say it was unanimous that it was brought forward for this meeting from the Heads Funding Group, but that there was a feeling that was to make sure that the decision made can be a democratic one rather than one made on an appeal. Having spoken to a number of different people, we'd like to put forward a counter proposal that consider the clawback for this year only on balances over 15% for affected schools, as that would obviously have a lower impact on budgets that have already been set for the year. Obviously, it'd also mean a lower number of schools having to justify their excess balances to the Forum. But I still do think it is important that those schools with balances over 15% should be given the opportunity to justify any commitments over 15%. Hope that makes sense.
Yeah, thank you, Kate. Yeah. Okay, Melanie.
Okay. So I think probably Jess, is it at this point that I would just ask if anyone else has any thoughts or comments on the new proposed recommendation? Gemma.
Yes, Gemma, please.
Are you asking for feedback on what Keith has just said specifically? Okay, yeah. Is there any broader guidance, Melanie? Are these numbers that we've come up with as feeling about right, or is there a central guidance?
I think actually the broad guidance is it's 8% and 5%, and Neil knows this better than I do, which way round it is.
Yeah, happy to. So, yeah, it's 8% for primary schools and special schools and 5% for secondary schools.
Okay, thank you. That's helpful.
Good. Thank you, Gemma. You want to carry on, please, Melanie?
Yeah, I will do. So on recommendation 3, it says that funds should be returned and it recommends the following blocks. So it says special schools and secondary schools to the high needs block and primary schools back to the maintained primary block. Now, the reason it says that was based on the previous discussion when this went back in November 23. And again, I wanted to ask if there's any counter views on that since, because I know we have had Heads Funding Group discussions about whether all of it should go to the high needs block. So again, could I ask if there is any counter views on that?
Does anyone have any views? Yes, Keith.
I mean, my view is that if there is going to be a clawback, that it would only be fair on secondary and special schools if whatever is clawed back from primary schools also goes into the high needs block, I would say.
Thank you, Keith. David, you had your hand up.
Yeah, but then Keith said what I was going to say much more politely and articulately, so I don't need to say anything.
Thank you. Okay. Anyone else have any thoughts on that? If not, do you want to carry on then, Melanie, please?
Yes, I will do. So I wasn't going to go into the main body of the report because it's been seen before, and it's simply just a list of those schools that would be affected. So I think if I just open it up for anyone who's got any general points to make on the report before we move to any discussions on voting.
Thank you, Melanie. Gemma, you've got the hand up.
Thank you. I have a question around the appendix, around the information, well, the form which gathers information. I wonder whether there was any merit in capturing the number of vacancies within a school. We've been around this conversation a couple of times, and often it's identified that surplus balances are often present because of an inability to recruit to posts, not because particularly they didn't spend one or t'other of their pots, and often staffing comes from all of the pots. So I wondered whether it was worth building that in, because that's quite a telling situation. We've seen some other communications around that, and whether or not that those vacancies, I don't know if there's a way of measuring it at the time of the report, at least so it's consistent every time you review it, or maybe the vacancies at the beginning of the year and the end of the financial year were all, or academic, depending on where that's limited. But the reason I say that is because, of course, the pupils receive the funding directly for their education, or the schools get it directly for, often at special but others as well, specifically for those children, and lots of that is designed for recruiting and maintaining the right people, the right workforce. And if they weren't there one year, then they get the next round of money in the next year for those appointments to be made. So given the workforce, the labour market, and the reason that some of these balances have occurred, my feeling was that should absolutely be built into the report as you kind of gather information. I don't know if that's helpful.
Yeah, I think that is helpful, and I can see what's missing there is any sort of explanation as to the reason for having built up these significant balances. It's obviously not there. So yeah, I can certainly build in some something to capture that. Thank you.
Okay. Thank you, Melanie. Anyone else have any questions, thoughts? Yes, Joe.
Please forgive me if this has been covered elsewhere. Obviously, this is my first meeting, so I may have missed it in earlier meetings. On under section 6.2 of the bit about clawback, it talks about statements should outline commitments for unspent capital building, etc. And it references unspent sports fund. Well, the government has indicated that they will be clawing back any unspent sports funds, so I don't think necessarily that should be included in the local authority scheme, because it's the government that will be clawing back unspent sports fund.
Yeah, that's true. So I think if it's identified, we should make a note that shouldn't form part of it. Thank you, Joe.
Yes, thank you, Joe, for raising that. Does anyone else have any thoughts? No? No other comments as such? Yes, David.
Just very briefly, I was waiting to see whether anybody else wanted to lead on it. It might be useful, I hope it is, Graham. The logic behind bringing it back here rather than an appeal to the DfE was around, being a bit more democratic about it, making our own decisions, having a measure of control over what we do rather than leaving that to the DfE, and also showing some intent to them, because one of the original reasons for us wanting to do the clawback was to make sure that the DBV and DfE more widely were very clear that we were committed to reducing the deficit in the high needs block, and it struck me and others, I think, that kind of managing our own processes, getting our own house in order would be better than going through what will be a long and quite arduous process to the DfE. So I hope that's helpful. I think that's me done. I just wanted to say.
No, that's very helpful. Thank you very much, David. Thank you. Nicole, you have a hand up.
Yes, thank you. So we've already alluded to the fact that when we previously voted on this, it was prior to budgets being set. Budgets have now been set based on end of year balances on the 31st of March 2024. So a question and concern raised by our secondary colleagues, and I'm sure our primary colleagues, is around assurances to safeguard committed funds and not then find ourselves in a position where there's a change in policy or amendment, because there will be some settings which will present a deficit budget if those committed funds are not protected. So I'm just looking for assurances around that and how that will be assured.
Thank you, Nicole. Yes, either Melanie or Neil, would you like to come in on that point?
Yeah, so as you can see in Appendix A, we've got the school balance statement that will be, we'll request those from schools, and they will then get discussed and considered at Heads Funding Group, who would then make a recommendation to Schools Forum. So at all those points, there's opportunity to detail any of those commitments. And yes, there would be assurance that those commitments would definitely be taken into account in the decisions.
Good. Thank you. Keith, you have a question or comment?
Yeah, sorry, I was on mute. So it's not really a question as such. It's more just a comment on the process of this, that I feel that whilst obviously the forum did vote back whenever it was to not raise the not have clawbacks from March 2024, and I know a number of the schools that have had this done have raised concerns, although they're not represented within this meeting because of they've got an interest. But I just feel that it's just important to make sure I share that, and the main reason, as I said, that the Heads Funding Group decided to bring it back to the Schools Forum was to make sure that the process was done democratically rather than on an appeal to the DfE, as David said, I think.
Yeah, indeed. Thank you very much, Keith. Gemma, you have another question?
Yeah, sorry. I'm not sorry.
No, don't worry.
If this forum don't support that, does the local authority and DfE have power to overrule that regardless? And if they do, would they consider the 15%, or would it be based on the percentages proposed in this paper?
Thank you. It's an interesting question. Neil, could you possibly take that one?
Yeah, so based on the decision that's made today, the local authority take a view as whether it's appropriate to go to the Secretary of State for an exception. However, of course, if it was accepted, or if the 15% was accepted, both of those would be acceptable to the local authority, and we absolutely would not go for an exception, to give you that assurance. But that is part of the process, and so following the decision of the Schools Forum, we take a view, but that view would be to accept the decision of the forum if that is to claw back at the 10% or the 15% level.
So is it better that we consider the additional proposal between 10 and 15% up front in order to, how's the kind of roadmap now, Graham, to get to the point of working out whether we're going to support or not, because the local authority will make take their considerations. It's very similar to the top slice, the 2.5% that was approved in the end. Very similar conversation, I think, to that decision making.
Yes, I believe so. I think what we would probably suggest is that we take a vote on the amended proposal of the 15%. And if that is carried, then that's carried. If it's not carried, then we'll look at the original proposal of 10%. Does that meet with everyone. David, you have a point?
Yeah, sorry, Graham. I've already said this at Heads Funding Group and privately in conversations with colleagues in the last week and a bit. You might not believe it, but I'm democratic through and through, and fully support what Keith said. But the original proposal was 10%. And I think a lot of people around School Forum are aware that 10% is actually relatively generous, with the figures of 5% and 8% that would put so many more of us in that group. Pardon me for my bell going off behind me. And this is the crucial bit, I think. There are already safeguards in place. And those safeguards in place for the process that have been there right from the beginning are that we will treat each school as an individual school and the context of that individual school. That committed money is to be considered, as Gemma has said, etc. There are a number of safeguards, and I just think we should be careful of those schools who end up being in when it's 10% and not in when it's 15%, and how the remaining schools will feel about that. My suggestion would be that we continue with the proposal and vote on the 10% proposal, which was the original one. And if there is no consensus with that, come back to the 15, because otherwise I think that will end up being divisive. We will try to do the right thing and end up doing the wrong thing for some schools, and I don't feel comfortable with that. That's only my view, Graham.
Okay, thank you, David. That's very helpful. Keith, you have another comment.
This is a difficult one for me. I sort of seeing from the perspective of schools that are in this position, that have already made committed their budget this year, that put together their budget. I do understand David's point about people having the opportunity to give commitments, to talk about commitments and everything. But I do feel that the 10%, sorry, is quite a relatively low figure of carry forward for some schools. It is higher for other schools, obviously, and actually would give I personally feel a 15% would be an acknowledgement that whilst we're making a change to what was agreed on earlier in the year by the Schools Forum, that at least was sort of, I suppose, to a certain extent, sugarcoating that for schools that have put their budget in place. My aim today is I will be voting for whatever resolution we put forward, because I think that I personally would rather the Schools Forum make the decision than it go to appeal. But I would personally prefer to go for a 15% figure than a 10% figure.
Yes, thank you, Keith. Gemma.
Thank you, Graham. I think the landscape has changed since we last considered it quite considerably. We've had additional meetings. We no longer have additional meetings. We've got the DBV initial reporting here. I think that there are shifting sands around us, and my feeling is, when reading this, it is a different environment to where we were, and the clarity around what we do know and what we don't know, and the size of our collective problem together. I'd be very much for voting as the paper stands. If it doesn't get through, reconsidering against different metrics, then that gives you kind of a hierarchical approach to considering the originally proposed paper.
Yeah, okay, thank you very much. Leslie, you have a point to make, please.
I think it's a shame that we're in this position, given the groups and the hours behind all of these meetings. I think sometimes the transparency of others doesn't come across. So what is the future of these groups if this is the position that people find themselves in? given the amount of hours we've already met. I think the people who have committed to this, it will come across once again and they will have to fill out this paperwork, and that is fair. I think the difference from what everyone says it's going to make, I would hope it would be better for all. I suppose what we feel is that the hole it's filling will just be a hole, and we will lose services around us. So ultimately, I think most people will feel sorry for the schools that are in this position again, and all of us that have been meeting for all these months. But at the same time, if they can give you that assurance that they need and those monies are committed, then I suppose for them, they are safeguarded. But we've been through so many rounds where it's not safeguarded. It's that, you know, a trust thing for the schools has eradicated. And I'm not sure how effective going forward the meetings can be if there are all these situations where everything changes and none of these meetings and times that we do actually contributes or supports. But I think it is important to support you guys. And I think the 10% has to go through. And I think if people can put forward what they protect, propose, have staffing issues, that is all they can do. I just hope it doesn't cause more vacancies in West Berkshire because they don't feel they can work with the local authority safely.
Yes, thank you, Leslie. David, you still have a hand up? Is that another question, please?
Yeah, just this might be my stupidity, Graham. Actually, don't worry about it. I'll check myself and then come back if I need to.
Okay, thank you. Nicole, you had a question as well.
Yeah, it was really just a point to follow up on what both Keith, Gemma, David and Leslie said, that we're all here to work in the best interests of all of our children in West Berkshire attending all of our schools, and also in the best interests of representing our colleagues. It seems, as Leslie said, we've had many conversations, and it has been many conversations over a great number of months with lots of consideration. We need to show, as David said, that we are taking steps to make a difference, and taking steps to make a difference quickly. I would support Keith's view about the 15% because it seems to me that that would be the quickest way to expedite the process and also ensure that the best interests of all of our schools and their budgets are protected.
Okay, thank you very much. Does anyone else have any thoughts before we move on to voting on this item? Heather, please.
Yes, just a quick question. Are we saying that if you decide to take the 15% this year, next year it will be 10%?
Can you come in on that, please, Melanie?
Yes, I believe that is what we're saying. Yes.
Okay, thank you. Seems a little unfair on schools that might fall into that next year.
Although I think the reason for the 15% is just because of the timing of it, that it applies to the year we're in. The 10% they would have had plenty of time and notice on that.
Melanie, Gemma.
Just want to be clear on what we're voting on first, Chair.
Yes.
Fabulous job you've got to work that out.
I'll work that out in a moment.
Perfect, thank you.
David, you.
Yeah, just I understand what's going on, and I admire people for how articulate being about it. I just worry that by changing the goalposts of the percentage, we might end up upsetting people more. I would recommend just trusting to the safeguards of discussions with individual schools that will have committed monies, rather than allowing some schools to move away from that evaluation process, while as others will still be in the mire of it. And this has been so, ongoing and sensitive and emotive. I wouldn't make that worse if it were me.
Sorry about that. I seem to have muted myself. Everyone's had a good opportunity to make their points. It's a very difficult thing to move forward on, and we are revisiting a decision that was made some time ago, obviously 6 months ago. So I can understand the difficulty there. As I understand it, it will be back to the heads funding group to make decisions based on information that they receive from any schools that fall within the clawback that you're now going to vote upon. I think the best way forward is to take items 2.21 and 2.22 together, because they mean exactly the same thing, really. We are revisiting it already, so we're reviewing what was indicated back in December, but we're just changing the year in which it comes into play. So I think I'm probably going to upset anyone. I'm probably going to upset half of you if I decide one way and half of you the other way. So I think probably I need to stick with the recommendation that's in the pack, because everyone's had that opportunity to look at that. Perhaps if we vote on 2.21 and 2.22 as they currently stand with the 10%, and if that doesn't pass, then obviously we will then look at a recommendation of taking that 10% and changing it to 15%. So the recommendation is then, as it stands in the pack that you've already had on page 23, and we'll look at the balance in excess of 10% but the actual amount to be clawed back will be recommended by heads funding group after reviewing the commitments on the statements from individual schools. It's only maintained school representatives that can vote on this. So can I hand over to Jess, please, to take that vote?
Mr. Chair, we just need a proposer and a seconder first,
right. Yes,
a maintained school rep.
Could I have a proposer, please? Is that yourself, David?
Yeah, thank you, Graham.
And a seconder, please. Don't have anyone seconding. Okay, Leslie.
Okay. So as mentioned, this is a vote with all maintained school representatives. If you can indicate if you are for or against the proposal. So Nicole Browning.
For.
Keith Harvey.
Although I prefer the 15% for.
Sorry, Keith, are you against?
No, I said for, sorry. I would prefer the 15%, but I'm
but you're for, okay, sorry, just to clarify that, that's fine. Okay, so Michelle Harrison.
Can I say for, but with a caveat that there needs to be some really strong guidance for the Heads Funding Forum on what is actually committed, classed as a commitment.
Thank you. Jo Lagaris.
For, but would prefer 15%.
Jo MacArthur.
For the proposal.
David Ramsden.
For.
Leslie Roberts.
For.
And Phil Spray.
For.
I can confirm that that's carried.
Thank you very much, Jess. Right, so that's carried. I understand the reservations of at least two of you. And I'm sure that will all be taken into account by Heads Funding Group as we move forward on this. Have you got a question, David, or is that?
Yeah, sorry, Graham. I just wanted to ask about whether we need to vote for the change for the primary money that Keith talked about earlier, so that all three are going to clear the high needs block.
Yes, I was just coming on to that. Thank you very much.
Sorry.
No, it's fine. Thank you. Okay, well, we'll move on to that particular recommendation then. And this is the item that is 2.23 on page 24 of the pack, which is David and Keith say we prefer, or the proposal is that the funds are as per your pack, i.e. special schools pay the money back or transfer the money back to the high needs block, secondary schools to the high needs block, and primary schools to maintain primaries. That's the recommendation in there. You can either vote for or against that. I understand that it's item C in that is the issue. Unless, Keith, you have a point on that.
Yeah, it's just great. Are we voting? Well, are we voting it as our individual? So primary schools voting on primary one on that, or are we all voting as a group?
I believe we should all vote as a group.
In which case, can I propose that we amend the primary school one to going back to the high needs block as I suggested?
Okay, I'd be happy to do that. Okay, we'll change that. That all funds from clawback will then be returned to the high needs block. Does that have a proposer, please? Thank you, Keith. And a seconder? Thank you, David. Jess, could you take that vote then, please?
Yeah, so this is a vote with all maintained reps again. So if you can indicate if you're for or against. Nicole Browning.
For.
Keith Harvey.
For.
Michelle Harrison.
For.
Joe Lagaris.
For.
Joe MacArthur.
For.
David Ramsden.
For.
Leslie Roberts.
For.
Phil Spray.
For.
I can confirm that's carried.
Thank you, Jess. And thank you all for your contributions. It's a very difficult subject, but I'm sure Heads Funding Group will come back with some good recommendations and we can look at that at our next meeting. I'll move on to item number 8. Could we let our 4 colleagues please back into the room, Sadie?
Yeah, I've just let them know that they can rejoin.
Thank you very much. Just wait and see if they're coming back, because it's important that they are able to participate in the next item.
We've got Maria and John coming back through. Just waiting for Chris and Jackie, I believe.
Okay. Reappeared, or have they given up on us completely?
No sign at the moment. Maybe just give it 1 minute more and then we'll. Oh, somebody else coming through. So we've got Chris now.
Okay. Who's missing? Is it just Maria?
No, we've got Maria now. We're just waiting for Jackie.
Okay.
She's just coming through now.
Excellent. Okay. That's good. It's important that everyone has the opportunity to take part. Okay, can I then introduce or move on to item 8, the Scheme for Financing Schools Consultation 24-25. And can I ask Melanie then, please, if you would introduce this for us?
Thank you. So yes, we update the scheme for financing schools every year following the DFE. Oh, I see Chris has popped his hand up there, Graham, before.
Oh, sorry. Yes, I didn't see that. Sorry, Chris.
Are we allowed to know the outcome, Graham?
Yes, you certainly are. We voted to maintain the percentage at 10% for the clawback provision and to move the clawback date to March 2024.
Thank you.
All right, Melanie.
Okay.
carry
Yes.
on.
Yes, so this update follows version 16 of the DfE's updated guidance. Appendix B is the key bit which shows the changes from issue 15, and they're all listed there. Obviously on section 7.2, I will update that just based on the discussion we have, but this scheme is for the year after that anyway. So I'll get that updated. And so all I'm asking for is that can we approve that this goes out to a consultation with all schools?
Okay, does anyone have any comments or thoughts? Okay, can I have a proposer then, please, for the recommendation that the updated scheme for financing schools goes out to consultation from the 18th to the 27th of June, and that the updated scheme is adopted after the schools forum approval? Chris, you had a question, please.
Yeah, sorry, Chair. Just one observation with
No problem.
regards to. Can you hear me?
Yes, indeed.
Sorry.
Carry on.
Just regards to the when the schools make an application for direct revenue finance, it's sort of in the scheme. It doesn't really talk about the paperwork that needs to be completed now by schools, and I feel like that's quite important. It needs to be more transparent in there. It's in terms of the detail.
Can you take the answer to that, please, Melanie?
Yeah, I wonder, Chris, if you could reply to the consultation with all the details of that, and then I can just update the scheme and include it all in.
Yeah, okay, I'll do that.
Yeah, that'd be great. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Can I ask then for a maintained school member to propose the motion, please? Thank you, Nicole. And a seconder, please. Thank you, Chris. Jess, if you could take that vote, please.
Yeah, so if you can indicate if you're for or against the proposal. Nicole Browning. Nicole Browning, sorry.
Sorry, 4.
Jackie Davies.
4.
Keith Harvey.
4.
Michelle Harrison.
4.
John Hewitt.
4.
Joe Lagaris.
4.
Joe MacArthur.
4.
Maria Morgan.
4.
Chris Prosser.
4.
David Ramsden.
4.
Leslie Roberts.
4.
And Phil Spray.
4.
I can confirm that's carried.
Thank you very much, Jess. You'll be pleased to know that's all the votes for this evening. If we can move on to item number 9. This is an update on delivering better value programme. And can I hand over to Hester, please, to introduce this item?
Yes, of course. Hello, everybody. Some of you have heard this update previously in a previous meeting, but I'm required to report to the DfE every quarter on the progress of the Delivering Better Value, and also to yourselves to make sure that we're on track and we're fulfilling our programme. I would like to say that at the moment things are going well. We're instigating various aspects through work streams, and I will go through this briefly for you, and then if you'd like to ask questions, please do. So, as I said, we've got to report quarterly to the DfE, and our first quarter report's coming up on the 5th of July. We have appointed two staff who will support the delivery of the programme over the next year. These are temporary appointments, but they will enable us to deliver at speed, which is what is required for this programme. Current staff are obviously already existing staff are already at capacity, and therefore this is a requirement to do this. We have 4 working groups, and they meet monthly and report to the task group, and that in turn reports to the SEND Strategic Improvement Board, which has an overview of what's going on. One of the key aims of the DBV programme was to build communication strategies with our parents, with our local area partners, with schools. One of the issues is our Parents Carers Forum at the moment is still relatively new in reforming, and therefore we have only a few members in the group. They cannot attend every meeting, but they have committed to becoming to the Strategic Improvement Board, which is absolutely fantastic. And we are now meeting regularly to see how we can support them moving forward. Another thing that's very exciting is we started to be part of the Quorum Parent Champion Programme, which is a programme which will enable parents to champion and meet with other parents to promote what's going on in the local area and also raise issues. It's really exciting. And it's a great thing that's going to be kicking off over the next few months. So please look out for that. We have a strategic communication plan, and you will be seeing it won't be the DBV programme as such being promoted within West Berkshire. It will be much wider than that, because we are relaunching a SEND and inclusion strategy, and we're incorporating that into our communications plan. The DBV programme is an integral part of the strategy, but obviously the strategy lasts more than 1 year. It lasts up in 2029. Hopefully that will be coming online in September 2024. And we want to all the changes that are happening within SEND, which are transformative in the way it's delivered within West Berkshire, we want to put under the title Innovation in SEND. And you will see that over the next few months and start to notice it in our publications and in our conversations. And it is encapsulating the work of the DBV programme, which is facilitating this transformative change with the SEND and inclusion strategy. So it's a very exciting time. You will have opportunities to see updates through the communications plan around DBV and the SEND strategy. Those updates will be initially in the form of a blog, but there will be further communication strands coming up over the next few months, which you will have an opportunity to be involved in as well. We are looking at gap analysis of our universal and targeted services with our local area partners, including health. We're reviewing what we have on offer and any gaps we would want to address. So that is going on apace. We have particular uptake around the autism services provided for parents and children in West Berkshire. And that at the moment is a point of focus for health colleagues as well. So I look forward to sharing what we found over the next few months and giving you an update around that and how we're addressing any gaps. To inform any changes in our SEND provision, we need strong data, and to understand the data that's produced, we are going to pull together a new SEND data set, which will enable the SEND Strategic Improvement Board to understand what's going on in more detail, understand the pressures and the trajectories of the pressures on the SEND system. And hopefully that will enable us to plan more effectively for the future, and it will enable us to develop a sufficiency plan. In addition to that, we are going to be starting our banding review. This will sort of commence at the beginning of July. It will run for 2 months in the first instance, and it will be a desktop review up until the end of August. That will be phase 1 of the programme. And then phase 2 will be collaborative work with schools about findings and interpretations of those findings and how we move forward from that. We'll also be reviewing our statutory decision-making processes, because these are aligned with the banding review, and we need to make sure that everything sits in tandem, it works, and moving forward, everything is transparent, coherent, and meets the demands within the local area. We'll be launching 2 support programmes in September for schools. One will be the Whole School Mental Health Project, which will be an offer for all schools, maintained schools in West Berkshire and academies, and will support early intervention with mental health difficulties that are presenting within schools. These not necessarily being individual targeted support, but much more whole school support to improve responses and ensure that staff feel enabled to tackle issues that may be coming up. We will have a transition support programme which will focus on the key transitions from year 6 to year 7 and also early years into school, and with a view to ensuring that children that are more struggling with that, and I'm struggling with that transition process, will have support when is needed, so that actually the transition will be successful. And that's what we're aiming for. We want to support successful transition into mainstream. We will audit school staff and training needs over the next few months, and anything that we pick up will obviously address through the DBV programme. As I've said before, the DBV programme is aligned and incorporated into the new SEND and inclusion strategy, and this will be coming out in September, but I'm sure you've had opportunity to contribute previously. It's not negating all the work that happened previously with co-production in 2023, led by Jane Seymour. It's incorporating that co-production work, and in addition, looking at how else we can improve services with the support of the DBV programme. Okay, I will stop talking and answer any questions you may have.
Thank you, Hester. Does anyone have any questions or comments they'd like to raise? Gemma.
Thank you. Will this forum see what is actually submitted to the DFE? I'm just thinking about that narrative. We get, you know, my stance on this all the time. We get caught between the various different comms, and this goes to that meeting and that goes to that meeting.
I understand what you're saying. They're very specific about what we can submit.
Yeah, sure.
So we have to submit the deficit management plan. That's a key document. And then there are various questions that we answer online in relation to the progress of the DBV programme. There are documents that we have to submit as well to outline that. I think it would be very difficult for me to do it prior to submission, but post submission I can show you what has gone in, absolutely, and that will happen at each time. But as I say, it's a quarterly report. This is the first time we've done it. We're linking in with the DFE to ensure that we're submitting the correct things, and it's also a learning process. They have said the first report is not so significant as the second or the third. They want to be assured that we are tackling the issues that we've identified in the timeframes that we have identified, and that they monitor the resources that we are using. So it's a very tight programme of monitoring and reporting around that.
So my request is that what is actually submitted is then shared with this, so we just have a single agreed view and narrative between everybody. I think that's really beneficial. I've got a few other questions, Graham, but I'm aware that I don't want to dominate.
No, I think that's fine. Well. Just carry on, please.
Okay. In terms of the cross-agency gap analysis that's underway, can you assure members about how the views of those for whom they are not attending school or are between schools? We know how many children are caught in between settings, etc., and many of them have a need that has been not met in various different ways. How are we capturing their voice? Because arguably they're the ones who then really need the specialist placements.
I think what we're looking at here is actually what is the provision on offer currently. So we're looking at the autism strand, for example, and we're saying pre and post diagnosis. It's actually looking at it's pre and post diagnosis, targeted support, and at the highest level of support. And we're also looking at wait times about accessing services as well. So it's the provision on offer, and then we will look at particular types of students and see how they will link into that. Okay, so it's the current gap that the offer that we have, and where it is quite clear we may not be addressing.
Yeah, and so I'm asking, can we be assured that the children who, as a result of getting a diagnosis, then end up not on roll somewhere, because that is a pool of very important voice that is not going to be accessed just by asking everyone who's on rolls, etc. Checking numbers.
Oh, I mean, we have to account for all children, but if they're not on roll, we need to be ensuring that they're in provision. So we are picking that up from different strands. Actually, we're picking that up through the sufficiency strand, because if we've got a cohort of children whose needs are not being met for whatever reason, so they're not attending for a significant length of time, because that is a local authority responsibility, or if they are difficult to place within a specialist provision, if that's required, then we have to, as a local authority, identify this what needs to be put in place to accommodate the needs of those children. So that's been tackled slightly differently. So we have a gap. We have services on offer, services where we're not meeting a cohort or a specific cohort of children. What are we going to do about it? And that will sit adjacent to our sufficiency strategy as well. So what's going in, and also what has developed long term for those children. So it's not in isolation. I think that's what I wanted to have.
Okay. My next question, I told you I had a few. The transition support programme is something that's quite difficult to read, if I'm really honest, because I don't know of a school in our area who doesn't pile a shed load of resource into transition. And I think, and I've said this before when we've talked about these programme work streams and whatever they're all called, but really importantly, that is fundamentally about the fact that the approach to education can be very different in primary to secondary, and it's not necessarily about people not knowing more about the child, but it's about the systems and the experience of the two being fundamentally different. And I think that there's a big gap there, and we keep talking about a team of people to smooth transition. I would argue that actually in schools, we have whole swathes of people in each other's schools, on Zooms for hours, going to homes, etc., etc. There's an awful, if we costed all of that, it's a huge amount of effort from school level and collaboration work. But I think it's really important that we think a little bit bigger picture with that strand, and we actually consider the difference and what the triggers are as to why children struggle to make those leaps, because we know that many adults are doing an awful lot of smoothing work and support.
Okay, what we're doing is auditing what each of the schools is doing, what's successful, what works, because we need to pick up on the learning of each school. And we've invited year 7 teachers, we've invited SENCOs to inform this programme. And as it develops, it will be owned by the schools. It's not owned by the local authority. It's what's going to be successful. But schools feel that it's successful. What do they need? Now, if it may be about curriculum change or curriculum offer, both in primary and secondary, we need to address that. We have to make sure that children are successfully transfer from primary to secondary if they are enabled to do that. And we need to identify those vulnerabilities early to support them. So it may be going back to year 3, year 4, or maybe carrying on through year 7 in that nature of support. What is it that children need to be secure in that mainstream transition? But it is vital if we are going to address the needs of the community to make sure that more children are managed within mainstream education and succeed. Absolutely.
I absolutely agree with you. The challenge that I'm making is, as opposed to making children succeed, what can the systems do?
Absolutely. No, it is about the system. It is absolutely about the system. I mean, you are going to get children that are vulnerable, but why are they vulnerable, and how can we target them to their needs addressed earlier to ensure? But it's not just children, it's about parental confidence, because there's often the fear of that transition from primary to secondary. How can we build a continuum and a coherent transition from primary to secondary that parents and families are secure in? And that is critical, actually.
Okay, thank you. the academisation of special schools, is that seen as a concern then for place numbers?
That's raised as a risk because we had forecasted when you submit the DBV programme budget, you also have to put in additional mitigations to help on the costs and the high pressures on the high needs above the DBV mitigations. And one of those mitigations we had anticipated were additional placements within a specialist provision that is now academising. There may or may not be those notional places that we had started to negotiate on. So we have to actually seek alternatives for that. So it may or may not come about, but if it doesn't, and if we don't seek alternatives, that will significantly impact on the high needs block. So what we're doing now is we are using one of our strands, ensuring sufficiency, to seek out mitigations around that over the next few months.
So are you, sorry, I'm going to go back to the same question. Are you saying that because of academisation, there's a risk that the increased pupil number at special schools might not play out or will not play out? And has that conversation actually been had with those schools and settings?
At the moment, there is a risk, but there is an ongoing conversation around that to address that.
Okay.
So there's not, I'm afraid I can't do a yes or a no. I'm just highlighting it that what we thought was going to happen because of the change of status may not happen. Therefore, we may need to prioritise seeking additional placements.
But it may also happen. Yeah. Okay.
It may. You know what it's like.
It could be a good thing. Dare I say it, Hester? It might be a good thing. You never know.
It's a fluid situation. Okay.
Right. Thank you. I am done, Graham. I'll shut up. Thank you.
Very kind. No, that's very enlightening. Thank you very much, both of you. Jackie, would you like to say something?
Hi, yes, it's just a query really. A lot of work's going to be happening in the next couple of months, but we're shortly going on holiday, and whilst all heads work periodically through the holidays, how are we going to ensure sort of participation and keeping up to date with information during this period of time?
Well, as I said, any updates will happen on general updates will happen on the DBV blog. If you're involved in a work stream, we will update you around that. There are no work streams happening in April. There are no in August. There are no work streams meeting in August, but any ongoing programs of work that you may or may not be involved in, you'll be updated. So what's happening at the moment, the transition support program is being developed over the next few weeks with colleagues, and that will be an ongoing development over the coming year. The mental health support program is being developed as we speak as well. We're recruiting to that at the moment so that it can kick off in September. The work around the sufficiency strategy, at the moment we're putting in data around that to see what that's telling us. We've got some ideas that came through the analysis from the Newton work with DBV, but we want to confirm our own understanding of the trajectories moving forward. So there will be a sufficiency plan coming forward. And I'm trying to think the final thing the banding review. As I say, it's a desktop review at the moment. So it is looking at the information already present. That will require a few weeks for that to be pulled together, and that's likely to happen at the end of August for that phase to be completed, and then we come back to you in September with the information that we have pulled together while you've been on your summer break.
Okay, so will there be any significant decisions made before we get access to all that information?
There won't be significant decisions as such. It's a continuation of the programme that was identified in April. The reason why there is this accelerated momentum around this, we have a very, very short delivery window. It's not the way that most local authorities like to operate, but we have got 12 months to deliver this, and it's a very, very, very tight programme, and we are held accountable by the DFE. So we will endeavour to keep everybody up to date. We have our regular meetings. We will inform the strategic board how it's going on, and we will be publishing our blog, and we will also putting information out to the working group so that you know what's going. So you're not missing anything, Jackie. But if you're worried at all, please get in contact.
Thank you, Hester. Nicole.
Yeah, thank you, Hester. My question is regarding the banding review, which you've just mentioned. Is the purpose of the review to ensure that students have been allocated the right level of banding for their education, health and care plan, or is the purpose to ensure that the financial award to each banding can sufficiently meet the needs of students? And do you anticipate that there will be a change in banding for students when those EHCPs or annual reviews are reviewed?
First of all, we need to ensure that there's sufficient funding to support the needs identified and the provision identified in the plan. Okay, so that's the first thing. The second thing is to align our banding systems and our spend in line with our local, our statistical neighbours. We're a bit of an outlier at the moment, and we want to make sure why that is. Can we explain that? Do there need to be changes? Anything that comes from the banding review nothing's going to be done to people. That will be phase one. We will bring it for discussion and exploration in September, so that we could possibly find a proposal moving forward around that. But it's to create a sustainable system moving forward around banding until something more national may occur, and whether that happens or not is another question. But we haven't had a banding review in West Berkshire, I think, since 2013, so it's well overdue. So it's looking at what's necessary to support schools to deliver the provision that has been identified in the plan.
Thank you very much, Nicole. Thank you, Hester. I'm very conscious of time, and we still have some items on the agenda that we need to get through. If there are no other points to raise, I'll move on to item number 10, which is school balances report. Melanie, can you just introduce this item, please?
Yes, thank you. So this is just for information only, and it's a report that comes here every year after we've closed the accounts. What it's showing in table 4.1 is that overall schools balances have decreased by £352,000 year on year, now standing at £13.3 million. In table 4.5, that summarises the main school balances, which have actually increased for all schools, although that's different between each category, with primary schools balances decreasing and all other groups increasing. I think that's all there is to say at the moment, because it's not much of a movement from last year, so it's just for information, and we've already discussed the surplus balance schools under the previous item.
Indeed. Thank you very much, Melanie. Item number 11 then is school insurance buyback. Is Leah still with us? I can't see her on my screen.
Yes, I am. I am still here.
You are. Well done, Leah. Could you just introduce this item, please?
Yeah, this is just for information only, to advise members that the school buyback service is going to be closed with effect from next year. There isn't sufficient buyback into the service at the moment. I think most of the schools represented here have already left the council's arrangements, and those that are left, we will be advising them that they will have to make alternative arrangements from the 1st of April 2025.
Good. Thank you very much, Leah. Item number 12 is the DSG outturn, and Lisa, can you take this item, please?
Yeah, certainly can. So again, this is a report that comes every year that highlights the outturn for the end of 23-24. What we have on the DSG in total, we had a deficit of 4.76 million at the end of the 22-23 year. That has now grown to 9.45 million overspend. Obviously, we're aware that the majority of that change is due to the high needs block. There are still some balances in the schools area where we have got money from dedelegations that we carry forward to offset costs of future years. And there are still also some funds in there for the growth fund, and that's helping to bring some of the overall deficit down. There's £1 million in that pot for the schools balances. The early years block, it did increase its deficit, and we do have a deficit recovery plan in place currently. One of the positive things we've got is that we've got lots of new funding streams coming on board in the new year, and all of those rates have to be set as a 95% pass-through rate, which we have managed to do. We've also managed to bring down the pass-through rate for 3 and 4-year-olds, which was historically rather high. So we're kind of optimistic now that we're going to be able to look at bringing that deficit down further. The deficit at the end of 23-24 was 1.3 million. Some good news in the Central School Services block. That was previously overspent in previous years, but we've managed to bring the costs in that down. So we now only have a £1,000 overspend. So that's promising, that's looking good. And that's one block that's actually all happy. The high needs block, I say, has gone up sky high again. We've had an increase of 4.2 million in that area. Obviously, we know that a lot of the EHCP increases have moved from 1,348 to 1,566 in that time. And also we have got a significant growth in the emotional based school avoiders. And a lot of those packages tend to be higher need. So we therefore have higher costs for some of those packages that perhaps we didn't have previously. And obviously a lot of those areas are all being reviewed as part of the DBV programme. So at the end of the year, we have table in 9.1, which shows a breakdown of where those balances are. And in the appendix, there's also a breakdown by cost centre where those balances have increased or decreased for the year. Any questions?
Thank you very much, Lisa.
Thank you.
You've been let off lightly. Item number 13 then, this is trade union facilities time. This is the annual report. Richard, can you introduce this?
Thank you, Graham. I hope people have had a chance to have a look at it. It's quite long this year. It's a bit depressing as well, I'm afraid. If you haven't read it, I would urge you to, if you haven't read all of it. And I've footnoted it all this year as well with where I've got some of the information from about the general picture. I'm sure I won't need to tell colleagues on this forum about the difficulty of recruitment and retention. And as I say in 3.1, the recruitment crisis is behind most, if not all, of the casework which we see. You can trace it back to that and funding and so on and so forth. So as I have footnoted lots of the points that I make in this, I'm always telling my students to make sure they put their references down and they cite where they get things. So I've tried to practice what I preach here with this report this year. So just obviously I'm not going to go through all of it, presuming that you've had a chance to look at a bit of it. But one thing that I'm seeing, I don't know if it's the time of year as well, but getting towards the end of term and people getting a bit frazzled and tired. One of the stats in there is about the Tallis report from 2018, talking about how the average age of teachers in England is 39 compared to other OECD countries where it's about 44. Now this was from 2018, so it's probably changed quite significantly now and got worse. Obviously younger teachers, they've got a lot of the benefit, but there's an experience issue, and we're seeing that in, I think, casework as well. And the other thing that struck me is that only 18% of teachers in the UK in England are over 50, and the OECD average is I think it's twice that, 36%. So there's a lot of experience not there. So what we're seeing with the increasing casework, as I said, perhaps the time of year as well, is that you've got younger, more experienced teachers who are tired. They're making missteps on things like safeguarding and that sort of thing. And I think that's symptomatic of where we are in terms of workload and that sort of thing. So everything else is there, as I say, and footnoted, and I'm happy to field any questions if anyone's got anything to ask specifically.
Yes, thank you, Richard. It is concerning, your report, certainly, and I'm sure all members are well aware of the challenges that are out there. Does anyone have any questions for Richard at this point? No, I don't think so. I think, again, you're let off the hook, Richard, but thank you for the report.
Right,
It's,
great.
although
Thank you.
concerning, it's good to know the level of detail. Thank you.
Thank you.
Item number 14 is the Vulnerable Children's Fund. This is an annual report as well. Nicola, sorry. Are you able to take this on, please?
Thank you. So this, as we just said, this is an annual report for the Vulnerable Children's Grant, or the VCG. This is a relatively small grant that's used to support schools when there's an unexpected financial pressure and an emergency, e.g. a vulnerable child moving in year, or a sudden change to a child's needs. It's focused on promoting social inclusion and reducing exclusions, and very much about getting the right support in very quickly for a school and a young person. So 27 settings have successfully applied for VCG, and it supported 54 pupils over the last year. And the vast majority of the applications have come from primary schools, and mainly to support young people in Key Stage 1. Most of the young people who have been supported have SEMH as their primary need, but young people with learning difficulties and medical needs have also been supported through VCG. The feedback on the report, and I won't go into it in much more detail, from schools is that this is a very highly valued fund that provides a sort of a support when a school really needs it and a young person's in crisis. It's a quick way of putting in support, effective support quickly. So that's the summary of the report. Does anyone have any questions?
No, I think you've stunned everyone into silence. Well done, Nicola. Thank you very much. And item number 15 then is our forward plan. Can I ask you all to note the forward plan and the contracts forward plan as well that was at the back of your pack? Does anyone have any questions on those at all they want to raise? No, if not, then I'll move on to the date of our next meeting, which is scheduled for Monday, the 15th of July at 5 p.m. I believe we should do this virtually on Zoom again, given the time of year. Everyone is very busy, and I think that'd be more convenient for most of you at that point in time. And then perhaps we'll look into our October schedule to see if we can then meet in person. Back at Shaw House. It'd be good to see everyone's smiling faces. Can I then close the meeting and thank you all very much for your participation. It's been a interesting meeting, quite an unusual meeting, and hopefully everyone can absorb what we've discussed and agreed upon. It will be a busy time, I'm sure, between now and the next meeting on the 15th of July, but I do wish you an enjoyable last month of your term, and thank you very much indeed for your attendance and interaction this evening.